A few months ago, I watched Interview with the Vampire for the first time, and upon finishing it, immediately told every single person I know that they need to watch it too. When one of my good friends finally did, we threw an Interview with the Vampire themed party, because sometimes television is so artistically nourishing and profoundly topical that it warrants celebration. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that our little get-together over jelly donuts and rat-shaped chocolate-covered strawberries is somehow exactly what Interview with the Vampire is all about. A lesson on how to create art that brings people together, Interview with the Vampire cautions that time is fleeting, even for the immortal, and that seeking to control one's own narrative is a fool's errand. The show visually illustrates that fixating on control rather than engaging in authentic artistic expression is dangerous. And through both its story and its real-life relationship with fans, Interview with the Vampire asserts the importance of respecting audiences as equals to the creators of the media they consume. Because in Interview with the Vampire, vampires are creators, writers, artists, performers, and humanity is the audience. And while vampires, like many real-life Hollywood stars, think they are better than you, Interview with the Vampire is here to prove that they are not, and that you are just as important and as worthy of enjoying art as anyone else will ever pretend to be. Vampires. They're just like us. Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire is a gothic horror television series based on a novel of the same name. It centers titular vampire Louis de Pointe as he recounts his life story to aging mortal journalist Daniel Malloy. While their interview takes place in Louis' Dubai penthouse in the year 2022, coinciding with the weekly release of the show's first season, Interview with the Vampire jumps between time periods and cities as Louis chronicles each chapter of his some 150 years on Earth, most of which, of course, have been spent navigating the vampiric afterlife after the vampire lestat lioncourt selects Louis as his eternal companion and turns him into a vampire in the show's very first episode. That's Interview with the Vampire's basic premise, and we could stop there, just let that story be the whole story. But according to foundational television scholar Sarah Cardwell in her essay Television Aesthetics, for too long, television has been considered primarily in terms of its communicative, not artistic functions. Which is to say that television has way more value than just to tell you stuff, and a story on television always has more to it than just what's written in scripts and spoken in dialogue. To really understand the themes that a television show is trying to unpack, we need to look beyond that basic premise and dissect the mise en scène, which is French for setting the stage, and film critic for everything that you see on screen. For example, if you wanted to dissect the mise en scène in this video right now, maybe you'd look at the shelf behind me, where I've intentionally placed books to make myself appear nerdy and well-read, or maybe you'd look at my Interview with the Vampire themed bracelet, which assure to you that I'm serious about liking this show. That's set design. This is costuming, and set design, costuming, props, color, lighting, you name it, every cultivated visual choice made by the artists working on a TV show add to the story of that TV show. Blocking refers to an actor's positioning in relation to the camera. In season 1, Daniel interviews Louis one-on-one, often framed symmetrically to denote Louis' respect for Daniel as an equal. But enter Armand, Louis' boyfriend, whose presence came as a surprise reveal at the end of the first season, and suddenly the symmetry is gone. It's 2-on-1 when Louis shares that he and Armand have been together for 77 years, which, as Armand points out, is 47 more years than Louis was with Lestat. The events of season 1 made us feel protective of Louis, so despite his repeated expressions of love for Armand, something feels awry. Armand sits taller and closer to Daniel than Louis, making him appear bigger and more important, even though this is Louis' interview. The two have been together for so long, yet the blocking suggests that Armand is somehow intruding. Next, let's talk about color. At the beginning of the show, Louis wears a lot of brown. The night Lestat turns him into a vampire, he's instead wearing black and white, which is perhaps to signify a loss of identity. Louis becomes a vampire shortly after his brother dies by suicide, a tragedy for which he blames himself. This combination of traumatic events leads to Louis becoming estranged from his family, despite having taken care of them in the years since his father passed. In season 1, episode 2, After the Phantoms of Your Former Self, when Louis visits his family for the first time as a vampire, he wears white, presenting a facade of purity. But during his much more hostile visit, in episode 3, Is by Very Nature That of the Devil, he wears red, no longer able to conceal the monster, the devil, within. In addition to being the color of blood, red is the color Lestat wears the first time he reveals his powers to Louis, which is why Louis embraces red as he leans more into Lestat's vampire teaching. I could talk a lot more about the visual language of Interview with the Vampire, the use of lighting, color, costumes, and the like, but that's a video for another time. For now, we move on to part 2. In Season 2, Episode 2, we're taken back to Louis's arrival in Paris. "I took up photography," he shares, "as a hobby." Armand mocks him, and Daniel posits, "Killing time when you weren't killing Parisians?" As if reciting spoken word poetry, Louis romanticizes, wrestling time to the ground, staring it into submission, holding it in your hand. "I was there. This occurred." Daniel responds plainly, "How is that any different from the photos I keep on my phone?" Armand interjects, "It isn't. It's a human perspective of time." This conversation occurs off-screen, while on-screen we watch Louis develop and print his photos, bathed in the red safe light of his Paris darkroom. This bold lighting evokes the human blood from which vampires gain their strength, and of course is the color Louis wears when he hurts his family in Is My Very Nature That of the Devil. Louis hates that he has to kill people to survive, yet the lighting paints him as his most monstrous while memorializing his victims through portrait photography. Prolific photographer Susan Sontag once asserted that while life is a movie, death is a photograph. Her introduction to the book Portraits in Life and Death reads as follows: "Photographs turn the present into past, make contingency into destiny. Whatever their degree of realism, all photographs embody a romantic relation to reality. I am thinking of how the poet Novalis defined romanticism: to make the familiar appear strange, the marvelous appear commonplace. The camera's uncanny mechanical replication of persons and events performs a kind of magic, both creating and decreating what is photographed. To take pictures is simultaneously to confer value and to render banal." And that's exactly what Louis is doing, right? Insisting on the value of human life while stripping humans of that value. Additionally, from the Greek photos and graphi, photography means drawing with light. Since sunlight is fatal to vampires in Interview with the Vampire, Louis's fascination with photography and exploration of Paris through his camera's lens is his attempt to control that which controls him. And he literally says that, wrestling time to the ground, staring it into submission, holding it in your hand, kind of exactly what he tries to do to Lestat to regain control of his own life at the end of Season 1. No? Louis convinces himself that photography immortalizes his victims in a positive, productive way, but whether they're photographed or not, they're still dead. As much as he tries to take this murderous narrative into his own romantic hands, people will die, he will live forever, and his primal hunger for blood will remain. In the present, Daniel supplements Louis and Armand's stories with readings from Claudia's diaries. At the beginning of Season 1, Louis rescued 14-year-old Claudia from a fire and adopted her with his lover Lestat after turning her into a vampire. Yet another, this time more literal, attempt by Louis to help someone cheat death. Due to vampires' immortality, Claudia would then live immutably in her teenage body. While Louis yearns to eternalize humans, Claudia seeks to grow old like them. While Louis and Lestat have each other as companions in immortality, Claudia's closest companion is her diary, where she writes to process her uniquely isolated life. In 2022, Daniel describes her writing as Anne Frank meets Stephen King, which is to say, personal and disturbed. As he, Louis, and Armand discuss Claudia's writing, they refer to her in the past tense. From this, Interview with the Vampire's audience can surmise that Claudia has passed away some time before this interview. Does this mean that Claudia got the transient human life she desired? Unclear. But as 3 adult men sift through this forever young girl's private diaries, she's forced to live on whether she wants to or not. Back in Paris, after meeting for the first time, Armand invites Louis and Claudia to a performance at the Théâtre des Vampires, his coven's theater and home. While Louis recalls that the plays were weird, Armand argues that the plays were timeless. The Coven performed farcical vampire-themed shows for human audiences who were ignorant to the reality of the blood-sucking death they witnessed on stage each night. Aesthetically, the plays were unique for their use of projectors to create seemingly interactive animated backdrops. Directed by Armand, these shows crafted their narratives the same way Louis sought to through his photography, by drawing with light. Despite the obvious similarity, Louis and Armand take turns teasing each other's art throughout the episode. This is because neither of them is truly concerned with making or appreciating art for art's sake. Both of them create as a means to control. Continuing their interview in the present, disconcerting close-up shots of Armand draw attention to how his bright amber eyes match the windows of his and Louis's penthouse. The windows, of course, tinted to block sunlight from entering. As Louis leans in, genuinely interested in talking to Daniel, Armand sits back, higher up than his significant other, and only cutting in to bicker and nitpick. With the new knowledge that Armand was a theater director in Paris, his obtrusiveness suddenly makes sense. Armand is trying to direct this interview. Louis tells his life story to Daniel in an effort to control his own narrative, but in the same way the amber-tinted windows control when light can and cannot enter their apartment, Armand controls the information that Louis can and cannot share. In Season 2, Episode 2, Do You Know What It Means to Be Loved by Death?, Louis and Claudia visit the Théâtre des Vampires for the first time. The house was only half full, Louis describes, a mixture of slavish devotees and overserved tourists. Armand adds, 5 out of every 7 performances were in the King's English. Then Louis, some had been there dozens of times, and some couldn't care less what was spoken. Finally, Armand says, they were all the same to us, cattle for our nightly Sabbath. Aside from Louis and Claudia, the audience was comprised solely of humans, awestruck by the show's theatrics and ignorant to its truth. The vampire Santiago narrated each performance with a mesmerizing charisma that had theatergoers wrapped around his finger. Everything you are about to see is real, he says. But as Armand explains, the coven went out of their way to use fake blood and costume fangs to, quote, lure the cattle into a willing belief of disbelief. For Armand, Santiago, and the rest of the coven, the most important part of the show was its culmination in the reveal of a captive on stage. A human woman is pushed into the light, sobbing, panicking, and pleading desperately for the audience to save her. But they don't, because to the audience, this is all just part of the performance. The vampires assault, strip, and kill the woman as stage lights go dark and the show comes to its chilling conclusion. The audience cheers. Cattle. Armand and his coven look down on humanity. They put on shows not to entertain the masses, but to take advantage of them, to create a revolving door of tourists, awful and awfulesses as Santiago addresses them, for hunting. Of course, while they intend to upset viewers with their creative practices, Armand and Santiago are antagonists in Interview with the Vampire, and the series does not condone their condescension, but rather warns of it. Interview with the Vampire recognizes that there will always be people who try to exploit others under the guise of artistry. For this reason, the show invites viewers to look deeper and explore what goes on behind the scenes rather than just accept the show for what it is within each episode's runtime. After airing weekly on AMC's cable network, episodes of Interview with the Vampire become available to stream on AMC Plus, where they're accompanied by sub-10-minute long featurettes called Episode Insiders. While it's fairly common to produce bonus material for streaming shows like Disney Plus's making of the MCU documentary series Assembled or Shogun's special podcast and behind-the-scenes tabs on Hulu, Interview with the Vampire's Episode Insiders stand out because they automatically play after the credits of each episode. Rather than make behind-the-scenes content exclusive to the fans who go through the hassle of seeking it out, Interview with the Vampire makes behind-the-scenes content a hassle to skip. Unlike Armand and his coven at the Théâtre des Vampires, the storytellers behind Interview with the Vampire treat their audience as equal, encouraging them to learn about how they craft their stories rather than trying to fool them. The episode Insider, following Season 2, Episode 2, Do You Know What It Means to Be Loved by Death, opens with executive producer Mark Johnson explaining the title of the episode, and goes on to feature producer Adam O'Byrne, production designer Mara LaPere-Schloop, and actors Jacob Anderson, Eric Bogosian, Delainey Hayles, and Assad Zaman, each individually speaking to the camera about their experiences filming the episode. Only after finishing this featurette does AMC Plus autoplay Episode 3. This is because the people behind Interview with the Vampire don't make this show in order to take advantage of you. They make this show in order to start conversations, and they want you to be part of those conversations. In media and communication studies, there's this idea called Harold Laswell's hypodermic needle theory. This is the idea that media communication is one way, with media companies injecting ideas directly into their audience's brains as if with a syringe, with no interruption and no feedback. Like, a person on TV says a thing, and then every single person watching that TV show immediately understands, accepts, and agrees with that thing. This line of thinking is why there's always so much fear around new emerging media technologies. Back in the day, owning a television meant that the media could brainwash you right in the comfort of your own home, whereas before that you'd have to go to the movie theater to get brainwashed. This fear of technology-aided indoctrination lives on in Americans' relationships with TikTok, for example, a social media app that, at the time of recording this, is set to be banned from US app stores if it's not first sold to an American company. But the hypodermic needle theory was never really accurate. In order for media to have meaning, there needs to be an audience to create that meaning. We see this with Louis' photographs throughout Season 2. We, the audience, know that this is a photo of Claudia, but Daniel, who doesn't know what Claudia looks like, thinks this is just a photo of another one of Louis' victims. We and Daniel are both audience to this photo, but given the varied levels of knowledge we have about it, we have different interpretations of what that photo represents. Thus, the meaning of art is not entirely produced by the artist, but rather the audience. This means that when Interview with the Vampire forces you to stick around after an episode to watch its episode insider, they're giving you the tools to be a more active and insightful audience member. They're saying, we're not trying to brainwash you. We want you to understand this show on the same level that we do. In response to this tone of respect set by AMC, Interview with the Vampire fans are not only interested in the lore within the fictional world of their fan text, but they're dedicated to understanding and celebrating the thoughtful details that went into crafting it. Pop culture commentator / my mutual and friend Bobbi Miller is heralded as a de facto leader of the Interview with the Vampire fandom. While doing research for this video, almost every article I read quoted her in some capacity. Throughout the release of season 2, Bobbi posted hour-long YouTube videos recapping and reviewing each episode, bringing thousands of viewers together week by week to form a community around their love for the costumes, production design, writing, and other brilliant artistic choices which serve Interview with the Vampire so well. In her videos, Bobbi frequently refers to crew members by name, drawing attention to how the episode insiders uplift the artists behind the show and encourage fans to do the same. Despite both seasons of Interview with the Vampire sitting comfortably at 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the second season of the show making it to over 30 publications' Best TV of 2024 lists, the show has been on the brink of cancellation due to poor ratings since its premiere. It's largely thanks to its small but fiery fan base that social media conversation around Interview with the Vampire persists via creators like Bobbi, as well as fan artists, fan editors, and fanfiction writers. Continuing to express appreciation for its audience, Interview with the Vampire hosted a panel at San Diego Comic-Con in 2024. There, they announced that the show had been renewed for a third season and shared a trailer with the fans in attendance. But given that San Diego Comic-Con took place before Interview with the Vampire's second season ended, fans were just as excited as they were confused by the timing of this surprise, expressing frustration that the AMC marketing team would dare waste an opportunity to get the show trending or in front of awards voters when awareness is already so low. Having studied and worked in digital television marketing myself, I have just enough experience to posit that what fans are referring to as bad advertising probably isn't the marketing team's fault. And from where I'm standing, it actually seems like they're doing a really good job. Like, they posted these character starter packs on Instagram that my friends and I think are hilarious. They even included Armand's sunglasses. Do you have any idea how important the sunglasses are to me? 2 months before they posted that on Instagram, when my friends and I had the party that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, what I failed to mention is that it was a PowerPoint party, and my PowerPoint had a slide titled "Eyes and little sunglasses." That marketing team and I clearly share an excitement for Interview with the Vampire's affinity for little sunglasses. And while I personally wear them in a Louis way, not an Armand way, I do recognize that shared passion. After all, it's the creatives behind the show whose passion inspires the passion of its fans. On Instagram, @AnnRiceAMC is the shared account for Interview with the Vampire and its sister shows Mayfair Witches and Talamasca. While they don't post exclusively Interview with the Vampire content here, they do utilize Instagram's broadcast channel feature to share exclusive Interview with the Vampire behind the scenes, never before seen photos, and some bites directly from AMC, per their first broadcast message. These messages don't always use the same brand voice as their public Instagram posts. Without a need to maintain consistent identity across shows, AMC is able to connect with fans in a more personal way, such as with memes and screenshots from their real-life office group chats. Like this one, where they get permission to describe the sunglasses as Deeply passionate about the show's story and equally proud of the show's storytellers, Interview with the Vampire fans are proselytizing as much as they possibly can. Namely, they're trying to get the attention of voting academies to prevent Interview with the Vampire from being doomed to the fate of its AMC predecessor Better Call Saul, the most nominated show to never win a Primetime Emmy Award. But if AMC's digital marketing strategy says anything, it's that they are intentionally more focused on connecting with fans than with voters. And this strategy is right in line with Interview with the Vampire's own messaging about art. Interview with the Vampire is an awards-caliber show, but it's not for Academy voters. It's for you. The show asserts the value of making art for art's sake and the value of sharing it with people. By constantly undercutting each other in conversations about their photography and their theater, Louis and Armand exemplify the age-old problem of devaluing art and letting the wrong people control artistic narratives. Their art is largely uncompelling. It's bad because it's selfish and because it preys on the people around them. In real life, consider the cartoonishly villainous business businessmen running the entertainment industry, who prematurely cancel TV shows, write off entire movies for tax breaks, and prioritize profit over storytelling. It's predatory. Additionally, think about the devolution of social media from a means for informal socialization to a means for curated content creation. If we are constantly considering the public reception to our posts, trying to get ahead of our own narratives, can we ever honestly express ourselves? Claudia's diaries are so important to Daniel's conversations with the vampires because in them she does honestly express herself. Her writing is so enduring because it's the most authentic art that anyone on this show makes. The three guys read her diaries because they are bad artists, and to be a bad artist is to disrespect art, in this case that Claudia's was private. Armand and Louis, threatened by Claudia's authenticity, rip out pages from her journal in an attempt to alter her version of the narrative. But by the end of the second season, the truth finds a way of coming out regardless. Interview with the Vampire asserts that fixating on control rather than engaging in authentic artistic expression only leads to loneliness and dissatisfaction, and the show is thematically successful because it walks the walk. Interview with the Vampire doesn't just tell you through its story that you should care about art, but it leads by example, demonstrating to viewers exactly how to do that and why it's so important, thus making good artists out of its audience. Just like there are a lot of powerful predatory vampires in Interview with the Vampire, there are a lot of powerful predatory businessmen, creators, and celebrities in the real world. Interview with the Vampire teaches, though, that their power is artificial and means nothing when met with genuine artists and storytellers who respect their audiences and inspire those audiences to create art and tell stories themselves. Okay, actually one more thing. That was supposed to be the end of the video, mic drop, but I picked the microphone back up because I have more to say. I'm not going to edit this part of the video, I just ask that you please hear me out. It is currently Tuesday, January 21st. I recorded that video about a week ago, which means that since recording that video, the United States has been through quite a lot. TikTok was banned and then unbanned. Donald Trump was inaugurated president of the United States, surrounded by some of the most rich and powerful people in the entire world. I just want to recontextualize everything that I've said in this video in the context of that. I'm gonna read right from my script. Politicians and billionaires, and the people we see on the news may be unfathomably rich and powerful, but as I pointed out just moments ago at the end of this video, their power is artificial. You also have the power to change the world. Bad people create bad art, and bad people try to control the art that good people create. Whether it's vampires tearing out pages from journals, or politicians banning social media apps, they try to control art, storytelling, and communication because they are afraid of it. Tech billionaires can make all the AI art they want, and they will, because AI doesn't have the human power that you have to change the world through art. The people who want to control the world recognize that you are important, and that is precisely why they try to take away your tools and your rights to create. They're threatened by you, okay? The most important things that you can do now and forever are make art, tell stories, and build communities. After years of saying that I wanted to launch a YouTube channel, I'm finally posting this, my first video, not because I stopped being insecure about my video editing skills, my lighting, my on-camera presence. I'm finally launching my YouTube channel because with the support of my friends, I realized that none of those technical things matter as long as I'm making something, anything at all. So let that be my message to you. Make something. Anything. Scribble something on a post-it note, bake some cookies, keep a diary. It doesn't matter what it is. It just matters that it is. It doesn't have to be good. It just has to be. Okay, that's it. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you so much for watching this. Like, subscribe, comment, all the things. You know what to do. I'm gonna go finish editing this now. Bye.